Fantastic. So we are coming into round 5. This is going to be a match between Scott Flynn and Chris. I know his last name starts with a V, but I'm not going to get the pronunciation right. Do you have the spelling of it there, Ronald?
Vina.
Chris Vina and Scott Flynn. So I haven't had the pleasure of playing Scott, but he's been back I definitely believe he was at last year's Ohio. As you're going to see from pretty much anyone from the Ohio area, that is a very strong play area. Those players. Hey, it's Dave McMillan. I'd love if Dave McMillan could hold one of those up to the camera. I don't know if they can hear me. I think he can. So that is one of the BMG cards. Little closer or farther away, Dave. It's a little blurry. Well, you can't see a ton of the detail, but it is a 5+5 training card. There we go. So this card is a 1 per deck. It's not allowed to be used under the Spartan training ground. We were very specific in saying any power training cards couldn't be there because we knew that this was going to come out. It's a foil card, very shiny, but it gives you a very powerful effect. If you have a character that has a 5 on their grid, it allows you to play a level 5 power card of that type. You'll be able to offensively throw it as a 10 or defensively defend a 10. Yeah, so that's fantastic. So every player that attends is going to get one of those. And then every single, there's going to be about 100 copies available to purchase after on the orangeking.com. If you guys don't know, Larry Van Etten runs in my opinion, the best overpower secondary market site. He's very active on it, all constantly running sales and great deals. If you need anything for cards, I'm going to give him a big plug now. Go to the orangeking.com. He's a huge Thing fan, Orange Rock. Larry's also been a very good partner to BMG, who is the company that I'm the CEO with. It's a new company that currently owns all the trademarks for Overpower. So all of this new activity, the logo that you see on those play mats, the top part is created for BMG. Larry has been a partner with us, helping us do a sell through with the foil power card set that we put out and with the Any Heroes Essential set. So he's been a very important member of the community forever. And he's just been a very big help for the game. So we're getting into this. Both players are putting their decks out. I really respect Scott did the classic. When he cut the deck, he put 1 card to the bottom. So, just a little trust in the way that his partner shuffled. And let's see what we've got. So both of these players are not, I don't believe either of these players are in the Master Series. Chris might be. Chris is only running 1 character from the Cadillac deck. That would be Spawn. And Scott is running a variant of the Cadillac deck. So he's running Inhumans, getting a 3rd backup of that 8 instead of running the Starjammers. That means he's going to have a really hard defensive shell to punch through. The Marvels gave the Inhumans a card called Royal Family. It works exactly like the Sentinels Master Mold. It's an EE, but instead of defending a power card, it defends a special card, or it can be played offensively to remove a special card hit. So it allows plays where, in this hand, you can see that Chris has the pin from the Inhumans, the Medusa card. That technically counts as a hit to current battle. So if Scott was to have Royal Family, he could allow that to hit, and then later in the hand could offensively remove it, essentially freeing up the cards to attack for the character that has been hit by it. So we're seeing some placing. Both of these characters, both these players are definitely getting some heat on the board. We've got 6 -4 to venture on Mojo. We've got the pin being placed on Inhumans. We talked about that earlier. That targets a character, makes them so they can't attack for remainder of battle. That'll essentially lock down all of the placed cards if it's successful against a character. We've both seen a couple of teamworks. We see the follow-ups available for Scott's teamwork, so we know he can throw it. We don't see the follow-up available for the teamwork that was placed on Spawn from Chris, and he's only got 2 cards in hand. So part of the calculation here on Scott's hand is that might be a dead card. Chris is betting 2, so Chris is ooh, interesting. Chris went 2. I can't see what Scott bet. If somebody on site could get Scott to just slide his missions closer to his playmat so we can see him on the stream. But Scott played the same Medusa card with his Inhumans that's placed on Chris's side. He's trying to pin Spawn, which would make it so Spawn couldn't play the 7 or the teamwork. Now, Chris has the Holocaust placed. So Chris lets it hit. Chris follows up with his aspect. That's a 4 strength, and any frontline character can make an additional attack. He lets it hit. Chris follows with the 6. Scott fires back, I'm assuming, with a 6 power card. Ooh. Thank you. Scott's just sliding his power cards a little bit closer so we can, or his mission so we can see him. Perfect. That's perfect, everybody. Tell him that's nice. Thanks, guys, very much. We can see everything now. Fantastic. All right. Interesting start to the match too. A lot of times you don't see people fighting these first fights. Sometimes, there's a lot of nuance to placing your cards out and then running and trying to gain even a 1 card advantage in the next battle can sometimes decide that battle. So all right, so Scott concedes. He moves 1 to the bottom. Chris gets 2 in the top. Now, even though, so Scott ran and lost the battle, but Scott also has a placing card advantage. So he's up 1 card. It's really going to start to depend on who gets duplicates. This is also the first game we're seeing with any heroes. So Scott is playing in any hero's deck, and he's undefeated with it, which is great. So this is going to be the classic battle of any hero cards versus battle sites. For those who don't know, there's 2 types of cards that can be accessed by any character. So any character cards can go in your deck, and they can be played by any character as they read. They were the original, and then later when you see like the holo placed down on the board, or you see someone play a card that's a hero card, they have access to that battle site that's at the top of the screen. There's a list of 6 characters that act as guest stars. Those characters, you can play a card for that character through one of your own characters, and essentially that character is playing a special belonging to someone else. It's to simulate the idea that guest stars are jumping in from the comics constantly. So Chris is trying to get this placing advantage back. He's put a teamwork down, a 7, a 4 multi on Spawn. Scott is matching him card for card. Scott's got his defensive shield up. He's got a 9 or less avoid on Spawn that can defend any character. He's got to negate a special card that can defend any character. And Doctor Strange can play that 6 or less avoid that can defend any character. So he's got the classic Cadillac shell. And then if he gets a royal family with his version of it with Inhumans, he's going to have an extremely defensive turn. Chris has gone 2, so Chris is trying to keep the pressure on him with the venture. Scott's only going 1 again. Oh, well, no, now is he thinking? Oh, so Chris, before the venture was finalized, he had a teamwork card that he did have to discard. I'm really confused as to why he did have to discard that. I'd have to see what's in his hand. He must have another teamwork that requires the 6 energy, and that was his confusion. So now he only bet 1. Scott's going to fire back with 3. That gives Chris the ability to draw another card. All right. So Scott's really looking to capitalize on this. He's really looking to try to get that 3 venture up top and sort of neutralize the advantage Chris has of having 2. Chris gets the first move here. Now, the conventional wisdom is to fire off cards in the hand first and try to require people to use those placed cards for defense. But it also... Chris does have a Sentinel's Activator in hand. If Chris was to play no special cards maybe played on Scarlet Witch, that's a really great opening play. I think that's what he's going to do, because that takes away Scott's ability to use that negate, or he has to use the negate to defend it. So I think I'm going to guess that's the play you're going to see made. Oh, he throws it against Spawn. Interesting. So I think he's more worried right now about getting the numerical damage through than he is getting that pin through. So we'll see. So Scott can negate this card. Scott's also got his Guardian in hand, so he does have a full avoid. So he has two ways he can defend this. It's also only taking out his ability to use the 9 or less avoid as far as we can tell. But a little subtlety to it that Scott may not be thinking of is Spawn also can't play the Guardian avoid in his hand now through Spawn because of the mutant countermeasures that just hit him. But Scott's firing back with a classic teamwork string. So the 6 hits on Spawn. He's following up with a 4 coming from Inhumans. I'm assuming it's going to be intellect. So it's coming through at a 6. That's it. Scott said no follow-up, and then Inhumans are firing off that Medusa, trying to pin the other Inhumans. So again, Scott's got two ways he can defend this. He's almost certainly going to defend this card. I think you'll see him use the negate. Absolutely. He's going to keep that secret information in hand that he has the avoid and hope that Chris gets antsy and tries to throw a big play. Oh, fantastic. This is one of the new promo cards. This allows Scott to look at the top 5 cards of his deck, put one card into his hand, and then reshuffle. So this was the promo that was giving out at the last tournament. This is the first time I've seen it played in tournament play. So Scott has access to any one of those cards. It cannot be a duplicate. Actually, let me double check the text before I claim that it cannot be a duplicate. Believe I have some of these right here, so I can give you guys the Oracle text. No, I actually don't have it in front of me, so... But he does get one card out of his deck, and I can't remember if it's a duplicate or not. So Chris is going to try to keep that KO pressure up on Spawn. So he's throwing the 7. Spawn cannot play the avoid in hand or the 9 or less. The only thing he can block it with is that 8, which he does. I think Mutant Countermeasures, one of the most underrated cards in the game. It's only available through a couple of characters that are pretty unplayable, like Forge, but it is on Sentinels, and it is on Onslaught. And I had great luck with a Phoenix deck I played a few years back, and I was running 4 of those. It was a really vital card. It is so hard to defend because it's non-numerical. You have to use a negate or a full avoid one attack, and it shuts down one full track of their defense on a given character. Scott's throwing the chain. He hits Inhumans with a 4 fighting. He follows it up with a 4. If successful, all placed cards would have to be discarded off Spawn. Chris is going to respond with plates, protective plates. Spawn cannot be attacked by Scott for any of Scott's characters for remainder of battle. Now, Scott's at 14 venture. Chris has 16, about 19 on the board that he can throw through. So Scott's really going to start doing some math here because Spawn is kind of wide open. So Spawn takes a 6 energy. He's going to play Web-Headed Wizard, and he's going to look through his discard pile and he's going to look through the dead pile and put any card he wants in hand. I think you're going to see him, I would imagine he gets the negate back out here. That allows him, the negate will allow him to defend that 6, which is, I think, something he really wants to do. Chris follows right in with a 6. I think you're just going to see the negate get fired directly off here. Oh, he looks like he's going to try to play the avoid, which he can't play. Oh, Chris missed it. So that's a bit of a misplay. So Spawn could not actually play that avoid because the mutant countermeasures was in play, but that happens. We've all made those mistakes. We've all missed those mistakes. So that's a big swing though for Chris. Chris could have made him have to use the negate there and then kept the mutant countermeasures on him for the rest of the battle. And then Chris would have had the information that Spawn was wide open. He could have just thrown the teamwork and the 3, and he would have known that the 3 with the bonus from the teamwork was going to be an auto kill. So yeah, and now he has access to the 9 or less avoid because he allowed him to negate the mutant countermeasures. That's a real bummer. Chris is probably going to end up losing this hand now, and he definitely shouldn't have. And to be clear, nobody's fault. I've made those mistakes. Oh, so Scott actually still ran. Interesting. So Chris has got a significant venture lead at this point. He's got 3 cards placed to Scott's 3 cards placed. It's going to be really hard for Scott to claw his way out of that hole. So Scott's got the confusion. The captain hook is the confusion. He's got an 8 power card. He's got to get rid of a 3 and a 7, so he has 2 discards. Chris has got a 3 in his hand and a 3 placed. I don't know if he's noticing that it's a duplicate. He doesn't seem to be discarding it. So he places a negate. Scott places the 6 or less avoid. Scott's got a lot of power card heat, so he's going to have a lot of defensive and offensive options. Now this is the situation you hate to see, because if there we go, he spotted it. Good. If they make that venture, there's a possibility that that's a renege, and as we talked about earlier in the stream, such a harsh penalty for those reneges. So you never want to see it. I'm really, really happy that he spotted that duplicate. All right. They've both got full power cards placed, and they both have a teamwork. That Holocaust activator is going to be really important. So Holocaust has a card that allows you to take all hits from current battle, move them to permanent record. That means they won't count toward the venture total anymore. Really important play if you're trying to get ahead on venture. He could pull out a play with that card. Even just getting these 2 missions up, putting Scott so he has more in the bottom, he's really going to set up a situation where it's next to impossible for Scott to claw his way out. Scott's going to keep pushing, though. He doesn't dare to go 3 for the loss, but he is going to go 2 and try to keep the pressure on. They're both going for 2, but they're going to fight. This is the kind of overpower you love to see. Both players, they're there to slug it out. It's like an old boxing match where 2 people are in the center of the ring, and it's just going to be the skill of how they move their hands. Both of these guys, they're fighting every battle. All right, we got a teamwork card. That would put him at 16 points toward KO. But it's not setting them up. It's not a spectrum KO, so Chris could let that hit if he wants to. But he doesn't. He blocks it with the 8. Now, it was a fighting power card off spawn, so he does have the ability to throw that 8 off the Inhumans. If he makes, he'll throw this 5 at a +1. He is going to throw it there to help in case the next hit's defended, but that 8 is going to come through as a 10 next. And I assume that's what he's setting up for. Nope, he just goes for the 8. So the 6 is coming through as an 8. Now the Citadel's interesting because we don't know where his avoid is. He could have the avoid on Holocaust. So we'll see if he avoids that attack, that's where he's got it. He's got it on Holocaust. So he avoids 1 attack. He fires back with a 5 multi, 6 or less avoid. Scott's really looking to try to take Spawn out here and get a little bit of back in this game by creating duplicates from a dead character. Chris has only got 1 card in hand, and I don't think he was expecting this much power card pressure. So Scott did it. So Scott's managing to take out Spawn here, and based on the cards that are placed, I don't think Chris is going to have the KO pressure to get over the top here. Chris's best bet here is to try to KO Spawn and hope that he can go character for character. Spawn can defend this with an 8. I don't think he does though. I think he has to lose Spawn, and he's got to throw that 8 back and try to take out Inhumans and kill 2 characters. I think that's the only way Scott's getting back in this game. Ugh. He blocks it. Now Scott's incentivized to run here, but he's got to stay in. So Onslaught's going to throw his 2 intellect most likely and get the KO. So he's going to win the venture. This is one of those situations where us knowing what cards are in his hand make a huge difference. So Scott didn't necessarily make a bad play there. He just didn't know what that card was. So he's gambling that Chris did not have the kill shot there. Chris unfortunately did, and even though Scott now put 2 cards in the winners, 2 mission cards in the completed pile, and got himself back into the mission game a little bit, he didn't really gain much of an advantage from Spawn. So he discards 2 Spawn duplicates. It looks like Chris had 1. Both players have exhausted their placement advantage. Mojo still has that negate, which is a huge card, so he's definitely coming into this with an advantage. And he's got a huge venture lead, so he does have the ability to place out. And if he gets the right combination of cards, he could definitely start to try to lean on that advantage. And he's also got more of a weakness. Scott's advantage with Doctor Strange coming up from the back is that Scott can just target Silversable with all of his attacks. And Silversable's 9 or less avoid that can be played from reserve, it only affects the teammate. So Scott can attack her and essentially make that a dead card. Sometimes people place it in this situation just to do exactly this. They place it to incentivize the person to not attack one of their other 2 main characters. But I think Scott's plan here is he's going to try to take out the Inhumans. If he can get one more big hit on the Inhumans and kill them, Chris has 2 max 6 grids. All his 7s and 8s and 7 or higher teamwork cards, they all become unusable. And I think you're just going to, even though Chris is way ahead on Venture, you're just going to start to see him bleed discards. And we still got 20 minutes left in this round. So Chris really needs to be able to defend the Inhumans. All right. Both players have placed out. Chris managed to put 6 cards down. Scott only managed to put 4. Now, Chris is enough of a venture lead. If he wanted to, he could go 1 and run, but Chris is going to fight it. I'm really surprised to see this. I mean, he does have the teammate avoid on Silversable. Oh, okay. Scott goes 1 and he runs. So Chris is going into the next battle with a little bit more venture, and he's going in there with a 1 card placement advantage. Ugh, Chris is going to discard 3 Spawn specials. This may be what Scott needs, but Scott's also put himself in a tough spot because the most Scott can venture right now is 2. So the best Scott can do is pull 2 cards into the middle, even if he does well. I think Chris's best thing he can do here now at this point is to fight. Just try to exhaust those resources that Scott has. So Scott's having to spend all his resources to win these 2 venture bets at this point. Chris is 1 teamwork card away from being fully placed on his front line. Scott has not been able to get anything down on Scarlet Witch yet. So Scott is playing the new Any Hero 1 per deck, Fairy Protection. That works just as Charm does for Gambit. It is a avoid 1 attack, target character can't be attacked. He unfortunately has the negate placed on the home base, so it's a great card, but he'd really love to be able to place that card right now since it's the most premier defense he has. Scott also has the ability to make him discard a placed card. You'll almost certainly see that go against the Negate or the Holocaust. Chris goes 2, Scott goes 1. Scott's going to certainly fight this. He wants to get rid of his best place card or make him choose to negate the opponent discard a placed card. That's Scarlet Witch's Spontaneous Combustion special. He also just wants to pressure Inhumans. Scott's main power type is energy, so 60-ish% of his cards are probably going to be kill shots against the Inhumans, so he can really pressure Chris to have to run if Chris is worried he's going to lose his entire 8 grid. So this comes from Mojo. It's a 6 intellect teamwork card. That's an offsuit card. He's got the 6 or less placed. Exactly. I don't see a world where you don't get the max advantage for that. Now, whatever this will come across as a fighting, I believe. It could be energy, but probably a fighting because he's got that 8 place. So this is coming across, I'm assuming, as a 5 fighting. Scott's got some good defense, but teamworks and follow-ups are going to be the thing he's going to have the hardest time with this round. He lets it hit, and like we thought. So that's coming across as a 10. I think you're going to see the fairy protection go down here. Protect is 8, and it's going to lock out the Inhuman so he can't be attacked. Now, you may see Chris decide to use his negate placed to Mojo to try to get rid of that, and then Scott will be put to the position if he has to get rid of it with his negate, or Scott could just offensively try to make him discard the negate here. So we don't know what Scott targeted, but Chris is deciding if he's going to negate. So it sounds like he targeted the negate. I'm assuming Chris just negated the card either way. The result is the same. Both cards go to the dead pile. That punts the turn back over to Chris, and now we'll see what Chris is going to do with it. Chris reaches for the teamwork, and he goes for it. He's going to keep that pressure on. So he's throwing the teamwork against Scarlet Witch. Scott lets it hit. He's following up with a 3 and some other power type. I think we'll probably see the 5 any power defended here. I think he's thinking. I think Scott's thought process here is that he needs that 5 to be able to complete the teamwork that's on the Inhumans, and so he doesn't want to have to use it in defense because it's representing an extra 6 venture that he could use. I love that play from Chris. Use that 6 or less, or the 9 or less avoid on the teammate while you can. Scott doesn't care. He's trying to just punch through it because he really wants to take the Inhumans out. That doesn't count towards Spectrum, but that's going to put him at a 13, which means a 7. The 7 that he's representing on the Inhumans would be a kill shot. And since Scott is representing so many power cards and teamworks, that Royal Family card on the Inhumans is relatively useless right now. It's keeping the other Inhumans on Scott's side from throwing that 8 multi that's placed to him, but it's other than that, it's just a deterrent for that single attack. I think Chris is deciding if it's going to hit. And I think we're probably going to see the acrobatics here. No, he lets it hit and he fires back offensively. He plays the 4 for the kill. He's forcing Scarlet Witch to negate, and then he fires back with that 7 for the kill. I don't know what's in Chris's hand. It looks like it can defend it. Also a 7 energy. The DC one was Superman on it. So it's Chris's turn. Chris passed? Chris must have passed there, which is a really surprising play for me. Chris has a lot of venture, but he also just allowed Inhumans to be killed, which is going to send him into the next battle with. Oh, he thought he had the avoid still. So I think that was just a failure of Chris to track what he had played. He played the avoid earlier on the 8 that was a 10 follow-up. So I think at that point he just made a calculated error, and now this is going to be, he's in a real hole. It's going to be extremely hard for Chris to come back in this game. Even with the dominant venture lead that he took in the early game, he's going to be bleeding discards. Anything with a value over a 6 he has to get rid of. He's going to have an Inhuman, a Spawn, in a duplicate 6, and I think he's got a duplicate Holocaust in his hand that he hasn't realized also. So that was 6 discards for Chris. He's got 3 cards to his name. Luckily, Scott's not in a position yet where he can completely go for the win here, but he can certainly place out, and he's going to massively capitalize on this. I think with 11 minutes left, I think Chris is too much on his back feet. I don't see a scenario where he's going to be able to come back from this. I never want to count somebody out, but 3 cards to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3 cards to 11 is there's not a lot of times in Overpower where you can say it's done, but I think we can pretty safely say that this game is going to get locked up here pretty soon. It's also, this is one of the things about losing characters in this game too. It's so devastating because you don't just lose access to their cards, you lose access to their placing slots. The second you get down to 2 frontline characters to 3, there's 3 less cards you can carry over to the next battle. So Scott only has 3 cards he can bet. That is Chris's one saving grace, is that Chris can bet 1 and concede here and just hope to God he gets a playable hand next time and can put some pressure back on Scott's side of the board. But unless he kills Inhumans and Doctor Strange, he's still going to be going up against an 8-rank character fighting 2 6-rank characters, which just an unbelievable advantage on Scott's side of the board. Chris has got his Beyonder in hand. Chris takes that 3 intellect, and he fires back with an 8. Ugh. Now, one strategy Chris could have gone for here, had he not used post-protective plates already, he could try to let Silversable die. And, is he going to sneak this out? So the 6 or less is here, but he's going to throw that over as a 7. And I don't think... This is Scott's weakness in his deck, seems to be power card, attack, defense. He has a lot of defense against things that aren't power cards, but I think that's going to get him. Oh, that wasn't for the kill. I think he should have thrown that shot against Scarlet Witch, but we'll see what happens here. He plays the Beyonder. He's going to defend that 8 off the Inhumans. He's going to Acrobatics Sable to keep it alive. Or does he go for the negate? He plays the negate, so he just stops the 8. And then he concedes. Well, Scott now has, I believe, 4 in the top. So Scott's definitely now come back and is even ahead on Venture. Chris's only real chance here is to knock out the Inhumans and Scarlet Witch. He has to hope Chris has to hope Scott gets a lot of dupes, and he can just pressure him and get some KO pressure. Oh, wow. Wow. Well, that's going to definitely hit Chris hard. So no activators. So Chris is going to have to discard any activators in his hand, which is at least 2. Scott has to discard all his any character cards in hand, which is, it looks like he had 3. And I think he has Fortress in his hand, which he's most likely going to place to Doctor Strange. So Chris's event got 4 cards. Scott's event got 3 cards. That is a crazy time for that to come out. I don't know who it benefits more, though, because I think this is Chris's chance. I think Chris has to bet big and try to just knock 2 characters out. I think that's the only chance he's got. Yeah, unfortunately, Chris just does not have the offensive heat. I think we're going to see Scott make a huge bet here. Chris is going to make a draw, and we're going to see what Chris gets to keep. All right, so Chris knows he's going to be drawing, so he's shuffling his power pack. This is also tough because anything that's a 7 or an 8 that Chris draws out of his power pack is going to have to be immediately discarded into the dead pile. So Scott knows he can make a huge bet here. And even if Chris draws, the odds that he's going to have unusable cards are very high. Scott only goes 2. Scott doesn't give him that card draw. He just incentivizes Chris to go 1. And then I think Chris just has to run. I mean, this isn't an ideal scenario for anybody, but I think, unfortunately, Chris just does not have any offense. The only gamble Chris could take is that the 1 card in his hand does not defend the Inhumans. Now, I got to see what he had in his hand, because Chris could have just thrown the 5 and tried to get the kill, and it looked like it would have killed the Inhumans. So if he just threw that 5, he could have killed them, but he didn't have anything to block the A next with, so he would have lost Silversable. Yeah, this is looking over for Chris. Chris had 6 more discards. We knew that was going to happen with all his 7s and 8s. So Chris is down to 6 cards. So even before Scott draws his hand, he has a 2-card advantage on him, and he only needs to bet 4 for the win. So looks like Scott's in power pack as well, so he's going to have a few dupes. Now, Scott could play this 2 ways. Scott could just go all in here, bet 4, give him 2 power cards. You know the best he's going to get is a 6. So Scott could just do that and just pepper him with those teamworks, just try to kill his 2 guys and end the game. But Scott also had a lot of discards. He still got 4 in hand. He's still up 6 cards, so he could bet 4 for the win, give Chris 2, and he'd still have a massive card advantage on him. So it'll be interesting to see what he does here. Time is running out, but I think we're going to see Scott just try to close this off. Nope. He just goes 2. So Scott's reason to do this now, he's keeping that Fortress of Solitude in play. That card with Superman on it, that allows Scott to play that card to concede the battle, and all of the venture is just returned to the piles it's ventured from. And Chris knows what the situation is here. He can't even defend a 6 teamwork card. So Scott knows he doesn't have a 6. Silversable's dead. He's down to just Mojo. So now teamworks, I mean, he's in the power pack, so they were dead anyway. But he's going to let that hit. Now, Mojo does have a cool inherent where those multi-power cards are +1 to attack. But yeah, Mojo is painted with 2 colors. And at this point, the 9 is literally unblockable. So I don't really see a situation here where they're just going to call it. Chris is just, he's thrown in the towel. I think that's a respectful play there. Chris knows at this point there's no coming back for him. So great match. Really, really great match. I think I'd be really interested to hear if Chris stayed in that hand when Inhumans died because he thought he still had the avoid. And again, we've all done it. You're 5 rounds in. These guys have been playing since 10 o'clock this morning. You play that avoid in enough games, you just can't remember if you played it or not this game. And I think he just made a call that he thought he had the avoid, was going to be able to keep the Inhumans alive. And I think that just cost him where he dropped his grids down to double 6s. And that's sort of the beauty of the design of Scott's deck. Scott's opting out of having as many powerful 1 per decks so that he can have 3 characters that have an 8 grid, and you saw exactly why there. That was exactly why you want to play that strategy, so that you can knock your other opponent down so they don't have their 8 guys, and then you're almost guaranteeing you're going to have 8s if it goes to Power Pack. So, great game. Didn't go to time. Game was decided before time ran out. I also really love seeing players that are new to the circuit doing really well in the circuit. I haven't had the pleasure of playing Scott, but Scott's a very fun personality on the boards. He definitely are the goat, Marcel. He definitely likes to give him a lot of grief back, and he definitely is backing it up. I believe he's undefeated now. I think he's 5-0 this tournament, and I think Chris was coming into this 4-0. Chris is a player. Chris is a player that's doing so well lately. I've really loved watching him. Chris played in a team event in Canada that Howard ran last winter. Made some really creative decks and played fantastically. I believe Chris had a top 8 showing at Toronto this year, the last tournament that we played. He's clearly having a great day today. I'm really saying I think very soon you're going to see Chris take a tournament home. The fact that he beat Phil Miller in the Swiss is showing that he has the play skill and the ability to take down the best players on the day. So I'm really loving Scott's homemade deck box here that he's taped a Holocaust card to the outside of it. I think that's fantastic. But yeah, great match. I can't say enough though about both players. I'm really looking forward to getting to play Scott at some point. And Chris has been just so consistent lately. I'm really looking forward to seeing Chris at a final table at some point soon. Yeah. I think we're gonna call that a round. We finished before the time ran out, but thanks very much for we got round 6 coming up soon, and just some really great matches, really great decks today. It's been really great that if you rewind the Overpower community to pre-Masters of Evil a few years back, I think you saw so many decks in the field that were variations of the same thing, and I think it's a real testament to how well the environment has developed that we're seeing so many people play so many interesting deck designs, play different characters that we didn't normally see, event sets that either we've never seen before or we haven't seen in a lot of years. It's just really seeing some great plays and some great cards come out. So I'm really excited to see what the next two matches bring, and I can't wait to see what the elimination brackets are going to look like tonight. So we're going to call this round good. Hopefully, I'm hoping to have a co-host with me next. So yeah, we'll see. I know Keith Bursack is going to jump on and join me at some point, and you won't have to listen to just me talking nonstop for the next hour. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's any questions, post them in the chat. If there's anything you'd like me to cover for subject matter in the next one, post them in one of the chats, and we'll answer your questions and we'll get to everything. Thanks very much, everybody. Next round will be starting soon.